Well, welcome on in to episode 18, season 3 of the mmjhl podcast. I'm your host and not play-by-play commentator. We're not even doing a game today on our side. We will have a game on our network tonight, but yeah, into podcast host mode as this is episode 18, season 3, as mentioned, of the mmjhl podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into this one, mmjhl fans. Man, story of my life. Been one heck of a weekend. Having to sort a whole bunch of things out behind the scenes, so that's why we weren't able to get an episode out. Was hoping to get one out before the Final Four had started, which kicked off 2 days ago on Sunday. The teams into the Final Four would be the St. Boniface Riels, defending champions, the St. James Junior Canucks, the Transcona Railer Express, and the River East Royal Knights. Congratulations to all team. What a first round it was. Seeing game 7 this season in the Elite Eight was special to see, and what a game that was between the River East Royal Knights and the Stonewall Jets as River East punched their ticket into the Final Four for the first time since 2015 for them, hoping to take it further this year compared to that year. Yeah, they ended up losing in the semifinals. They're currently down 1-0 to the Transcona Railer Express as they defeated them 6-1 yesterday. But yeah, I mean, for River East being able to break that curse, a team that had missed the playoffs the past 2 seasons, now into the Final Four, and what a comeback victory that was against the Stonewall Jets as they scored 4 unanswered in that third period. This is our broadcast schedule for the Final Four. We'll have the first 4 games of St. Boniface and St. James. Unfortunately, we're unable to broadcast out of Terry Sawchuk Arena. We're not sure if we're going to be able to do Friday's Game 3 at East End Arena just due to some complications in our scheduling maybe, but we will have confirmation on that in the next few days, and you'll also see it pop up on the mmjhl's website once that stream does get confirmed, if it does or not. But stay tuned. You can watch all of the action live on gshowproductions.uscreen.io. We're going to send it to a commercial break, and then I'm going to be back to show you some highlights from 2 days ago on Sunday, and then we're also going to recap the Elite Eight, and I'm also going to talk about how I feel the Final Four series are going to go down this season in the MMJHL. I'll give my analysis on all of that coming up on the MMJHL podcast, episode 18, season 3. Stay tuned, everybody.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Welcome back into the mmjhl podcast. mmjhl fans, as the Final Four is going to pick up today with Game 2s between the St. Boniface Riels and St. James Junior Canucks, matchup that you can see on our network tonight, and also in Terry Sawchuk, the River East Royal Knights playing at home for the first time in a Final Four series since 2015 as they take on the Transcona Railer Express for game number 2 of their series. As mentioned, we will have St. James and St. Boniface broadcasted. You can go to that game, access it directly through the MMJHL's website at mmjhl.ca. And before I forget, just want to mention that in 2026-2027, the MMJHL's website, from what I've been told, is going to have a whole new look. So, yeah, exciting time. Stay tuned for that, as that'll be coming next season, which is quite exciting. But in terms of the hunt for the hunt for Jack McKenzie, is that's the name of the championship trophy here in the MMJHL. It started on March 12th, as it's crazy to believe that we're already on the last day of March at this point, as into the Final Four. This is how the standings look at this point, as Transcona, the Railer Express, the only perfect team remaining up until this point. They were the only team to sweep through the first round. St. James, the second team to get to 5 wins, and that was thanks to their victory yesterday, 6-2 over the St. Boniface Riels. And for the first time in their 6 series that they've played from last year's, I guess it's 5 series, since there's only 3 that you need to win a championship in the MMJHL. But for the St. Boniface Riels, of course, going 12-1 last year on their finals run, won every single series, never trailed in any of those series either. They never trailed against the Fort Garry Twins in the Elite Eight this year, but yeah, in this series so far, for the first time in quite a while, St. Boniface trails a series, something that did not occur at all last year. As mentioned, St. James, a really tough test for them. We'll get into that more as this episode goes along. But we take it back to Transcona River East yesterday. St. Laurent, or rather, that was defenseman in McCorser had that blocked at the blue line as River East takes this in on an odd man rush. Arguably could have been offside, but the linesman did not call it that way. It would be Liam Urcioli who would finish off that feed in front to get that game tied up at 1 apiece in the first period. But this would be later on into the third. I just noticed that I didn't cut these correctly, but yeah, Transcona, they would work their lead up to 5-1, and then 6-1. A beautiful play made. Whiteman finding Sellen back door. Great job by Nathan Turner on the face-off draw as well to tie that up, to give Whiteman a chance to get it. But here would be the official game-winning goal. Battle along the board. St. Laurent banks it up to Kyle Todoruk, who would put one home. The game winners, it would stand, as Transcona would score 5 unanswered after being tied up in that game at 1 apiece, and that would be enough to take down the River East Royal Knights. That effort cruising to a 6-1 victory yesterday, as Transcona looking for more of the same tonight, as well as for St. James looking for more of the same from their game 1 victory on Sunday in the defending champs' home arena at Southdale Community Center. But look, St. James, I think coming into this series is going to be a handful for St. Boniface to handle. And I think that this probably the biggest, most challenging test that St. B has had, even though they went out and swept the Fort Garry Twins last year. This St. James team not quite as good defensively compared to that Fort Garry team, but they have as much offense, if not more. A team that was really hot coming into the postseason, and a team that was able to rattle off 3 straight wins in their past postseason series in the Elite Eight against the Charleswood Hawks to eventually down them. And for a team that's coming in, a team that is looking to knock off the defending champs, yesterday's Game 1 victory victory was quite a good start for the St. James Junior Canucks. As we pick this up in the first period, rebound loose in front, and that would be put home by just a moment here. There's something odd happened there for a moment. We'll play these highlights back again. So shot from the point gives Owen LaRocque a whole bunch of trouble. To find it would be number 26 in Ethan Sari. He had himself a huge game, as you saw in the stat sheet, or as you might have seen. He scored a hat trick. This would end up being his second goal of the game, doing it all himself from the slot after receiving that pass off of a board battle. One, LaRocque once again having trouble making that first save, and Sari able to dig under him and put it away. But St. Boniface, one thing that they do have is a really good power play, and to get their first goal of this Final Four series, they're able to hold this clear in, play it back to the point, and going after that rebound after a shot from Bachnet would be Gare's leading point getter for St. Boniface through the first round. Bryson would get them on the board for the first time. But after cutting the lead down to only 2 and having a chance off the rush, St. B unable to capitalize on their opportunity. A good defensive play, good back check from the St. James Junior Canucks, and then here Ariel getting caught going after the puck carrier, who, well, smart play, finds Robertson, who's able to put that in top shelf past Owen LaRocque. Ethan Sari would add on an empty netter to score a hat trick in that 6-2 victory. A statement from the St. James Junior Canucks. As we're going to get into more of them coming up in just a bit in terms of that Game 1 victory and how I feel like this series could play out for them, as well for the St. Boniface Riels, and as well as in that River East Royal Knights and Transcona Railer Express Series 2. But what we're going to do first off, since we haven't had a chance to really do it as of yet, we're going to go through each Elite 8 round series and talk about what went right, what went wrong for, the teams, what went right for the winning teams, what went wrong for the losing teams. And, I was thinking of going in the order of how these series were won, but I think I'm going to do the opposite of that. I think we're going to start off with the, most anticipated game out of them all. A game that was so much fun to cover on a Friday night in Stonewall, Manitoba. The River East Royal Knights taking on the Stonewall Jets. Stonewall coming back after being down 3-0 in that best-of-7 series, rattling off 3 straight victories, and in a Game 7 where it was looking very much like Stonewall was going to be able to take it, they were able to just put on quite a show for their fans. But in the end, it was, disappointment, as the River East Royal Knights would find a way to cap off an improbable comeback. And before we actually show you that, want to take you through what the scores looked like in the Elite 8. As it started off with the St. Boniface Riels winning 3-0 over the Fort Garry Twins. We take a look at some other maybe shocking scores, just the way it played out in terms of Charleswood being able to get 50 save plus performance from Mark Salmon in that victory against the St. James Junior Canucks. Charleswood would go up 2-1 in that series. And just taking a look at it, all of the favorites, there was 2 that didn't really struggle. There were 2 that struggled out of the gates in terms of St. James and Stonewall being favorites in their series. But St. Boniface and Transcona had no problems. The only time the Raiders really got close was in that Game 3 loss, losing 3-2 to the Railer Express. And then we go into Game 4 Fridays, where the Railers were able to sweep the Raiders, become the first team to punch their ticket into the next round. The St. James Junior Canucks with a huge bounce-back win, and that was the beginning of the end for the Charleswood Hawks, as St. James would rattle off 3 straight victories where the score didn't even really look close. As for St. Boniface, they would suffer a loss on that Friday in game number 3 to the Fort Garry Twins in quite a barn burner, but St. Boniface would pull things together and rattle off 2 straight victories to punch their ticket through. Where things really got interesting, as mentioned, was the Stonewall Jets and River East Royal Knights series. As Stonewall, a victory on the road and then at home, both being 5-2 victories. Or rather, sorry, getting ahead of myself. Friday was the game 4 for them. They ended up rattling off a 5-2 victory and then a 6-2 victory in game number 5 and game number 6, staying alive, almost blowing a lead, but coming through, winning 4-3, and then, well, game number 7 played out very similarly to game number 6, but this time it had a different outcome, and it was a curse broken for the Royal Knights. He's along the boards as he's cut off. Chung able to walk that up at the blue line, gets his back, finds Bateman, slot scores! The co-MVP with a heck of a rip, posting in. But it's the play made by Chung to take it away. Locates Bateman, high-level execution from the... Dishes this off, now saucered into the glove of Giasin, worked ahead, Stonewall behind, the D, that shot through, turned aside, oh, it's still loose, rebound, scores! Captain King, 12th goal of the postseason. Keeps us down low. Bateman sandwich along the boards. Great play made there by the Royal Knights, getting numbers in their own end. Great patience there by Fielding, but that pass intercepted. Bad bounce. Fielding picks it up. Rip shot. Turned aside. Hunnam was back still. Scores! Oh, the improbable happening here tonight at the Stonewall Veterans Memorial Sports Complex. On that rebound, it's Hansman. Soft draw, far side, one, after scores! River East up by 116 remaining. As the great Gord Miller once said, can you believe it? That's Karsten Wallachin who puts it home. Shot able to squeeze by Spencer Hunnam. Firstly. Yeah, I can't say enough about how crazy that game was. The comeback for a River East Royal Knights team that had scored a goal up until a point where their head coach, Manny Manuk, actually got kicked out of that matchup. He's suspended for the next game as he got a 2-game suspension. Already been gone for 1 in the Final Four. He'll be making his return in game number 3. But for that group to rally the way they did and come back and never stop believing in themselves was just, I mean, that's what makes this game so great. It's never over until it's over, right? And River East proved that completely in that game 7. And throughout this series, yeah, I mean, very even between the two sides. Both took the same exact amount of penalty minutes. Both scored the same goals for in terms of goals against allowed. Both teams were able to get their power play going as well. A very back and forth series with, you know, a high amount of shots from both sides. But I felt like Stonewall in the end, loading up the top line the way they did, they didn't get really many contributions outside of that top line of King, Halad, and Bateman, who were fantastic, by far the best line throughout that first round of the mmjhl postseason. As you'll see, they're all near the or at the lead of the leaderboards at the top of them, but River East also had a pretty good top line as well, and their depth, a number of players came through in huge moments, not just Graham Maslow and Kalen Reynolds, but players like Nolan Fielding, Liam Urcioli, and others from this group as well. Their defense even getting into the goal scoring throughout this series too. And for a team in Stonewall, a lot of this came down to them being sloppy in their own end. They really struggled on the penalty kill at the start of this series. It got better, but when you're going up against a team that's dangerous on the counterattack, who matched up pretty well, all things considered, in terms of how they were able to shut down and aggravate the Stonewall Jets team. It's just, yeah, it's a recipe for the series to maybe shift the other way, and it did for the River East Royal Knights. And then in terms of the goaltending side of things, Kyle Bielman starts off struggling in that game 7. Thought that Spencer Hunnam raised his level when the games got even more important in this series when he faced elimination, got pulled in game number 3, and had a really strong next 3 games. But in the end, in this series, he let in some soft ones too, right? Which we saw, as good as that goal was from Karsten Woloshyn to win this series. Felt like that was one that Spencer Hunnam should have had. But can't fault the River East Royal Knights for a team that they were going against not getting the big saves when it mattered the most. They did, and they never quit in this series. And I think that says a lot about this group. They showed a lot of heart, and this is a team that will be losing some significant talent after this year, but also bringing back some significant talent in terms of the younger players and players that have maybe only been here for a couple of years, and they have an opportunity to build off of that. And for the group that was able to go through and win in that Elite 8 series, now you got a taste of winning in the postseason, and you could maybe use that to your advantage moving forward as a group as things continue to build along. I feel like, though, for the Stonewall Jets, this has to be so devastating, and at the end of the day, it's unfortunately a failure of a season, because this team was set primed to go for a championship run. I felt like if there was any year to do it, it was this year with this group. They're going to have a bunch of significant talent aging out this year too, like Bateman and King. They're not going to be there next year, along with a number of other players for this team. So yeah, it's definitely a missed opportunity, and when you're up 4-1 in a game 7 heading into the third period, it definitely stings even more. And for Pat Power, again, facing disappointment in the Game 7 as a few years ago when they held a huge lead. It wasn't Stonewall, he was coaching with Fort Garry, but when they held a huge lead in their Game 7 against St. Vital, as they faced off against each other, Fort Garry and St. Vital did in that series that year. Fort Garry was up by multiple goals in the third period then, and St. Vital scored 5 unanswered to sink the Twins. So, yeah, just so many interesting things about that Game 7 and about that series, and storylines that, extended from seasons before into this one, playing through. It's just, yeah, crazy, and that's what's so special about the postseason is moments like we saw this past Friday night. But River East in a much tougher situation this time around against the Transcona Railer Express, which will break down that series coming up, the Final Four, as mentioned. Into the team that, made it into the Final Four, first out of anybody, the first place team this year in the Transcona Railer Express, and a group that, didn't really face many troubles in their first round against the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, if I have to be completely honest. There was one game where the Raiders made it close, as mentioned, but other than that, it was all Railers in this series, and a sweep, as we called it. Back Bruchansky waiting at the blue line, finds his captain in Vandenbush looking to build speed. Vandenbush wide, sharp angle shot, turned aside. Wraparound chance there, scores! Well, I hope we just didn't freeze up with our camera angle, but Vandenbush, man. Well, there's the captain, Nolan Vandenbush, picking up his own rebound after a wraparound. That not the game-winning goal in that matchup, but it ended up being a goal to um, build up more of that lead for the Railer Express. As for the Railer Express Transcona into the Final Four with that Game 4 victory, defeating the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. As in that game, they ended up winning by a score of 5-2. But yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? Felt like this was going to be a sweep coming in, and we called that right. Just for the Raiders, way too many penalties taken throughout this first round series for them. Yet another year where they haven't been able to put a win on the board. They've been swept the past few seasons, now 0-12 in their last 12 Elite 8 matchups. But talked about how their numbers across the board went down this year, and that just carried through into the postseason. Anderson ended up scoring 4 of their 5 goals, and if you're going to take down a team like the Transcona Railer Express, you're going to need way more than that, and they just couldn't get it. 0% on the power play, had a bunch of troubles on the PK, and even when they were on the power play, not only 0%, but gave up multiple shorthanded goals throughout this series. Transcona, their special teams exploded, came through big time, as those are some pretty gaudy numbers through the first round of this postseason. But yeah, no offense from this Raiders team, really. They did have chances, but couldn't find a way to solve Delarone, and on average just not putting up enough action to be able to be competitive in this series. Thought that Owen Savoy, though, he was fantastic in this series for the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. He had a save percentage of over 900 after the first round, and when you faced an average of 48 shots against per game, that's just telling that it just wasn't on the goaltending. It was on the team in front. And yeah, for the Railer Express, they had too much depth, too much skill, too good in all areas of the game, not only 5-on-5, but on special teams. And yeah, felt like Sage Delarone was on the top of his game at many points in that series, had a shutout to start things off, and didn't really give up any weak goals throughout this series as well. The goals that did beat them, the Raiders had to work for them. And yeah, for Transcona, cruising into the Elite 8, where, of course, now they're facing off against the Royal Knights, as mentioned. As for the defending champions, St. Boniface Riels went up against the Fort Garry Twins, a team that has become a familiar foe to them in the postseason for yet another round of Elite 8 action, as they took on Fort Garry last year in the semifinals, en route to their first championship win since a decade ago in 2014-15. The year before last year, these two teams faced off against each other in the Elite 8, where St. Boniface won in 6 games. Well, this season, at least at least Fort Garry was able to get a victory over St. Boniface from their perspective, 7-6 in that game 3. But St. Boniface in the end would find a way to take care of business, and would end up, finding this big time goal in game number 5 to help them secure that victory.
Picked up. Sukit across. Brzezinski back to Sukit. Sukit waits, trying to set a screen up. Fires on the doorstep. Bucketug scores. And the power play gets it done, as that's 2 goals, the second of the frame.
And that'd be Nathan Brzezinski finishing it off backdoor on the power play, as that would end up being the game winner for St. Boniface in that 4-1 matchup. For St. B, when we take a look at how the series went for this squad, a signature Riel's performance, really, holding the team to under 25 shots on average, putting up over 30 shots per game in this series. Special teams also very efficient. And going up against a Fort Garry team that didn't exactly lack offense throughout this series. They were able to put up a 7 spot on St. Boniface in that game 3. It ended up being an anomaly, but maybe an anomaly because of the lack of the chances, right? Especially when this team, is so young, and maybe a bit of inexperience as well from Fort Garry throughout this postseason. It just felt like they were outmatched from the beginning in this series. Looking at how the season series went as well, that's not always indicative, but St. Boniface more times than not handled Fort Garry pretty easily throughout the regular season. Fort Garry did push St. B at times throughout this series, kept things close in game number 4 until St. Boniface was able to find a few late goals in that game for victory. But yeah, I mean, I said this last episode, I feel like the future is bright for Fort Garry, but this just not the year exactly for them. Elite 8 exit, and for St. Boniface, not only did they get a signature performance, but they did by committee as well. Talked about how Bryson Gare's been big time for this team, but they've had multiple players that have been able to score goals. Their depth came through in that first round, and yeah, St. Boniface into their third straight Final Four appearance, where of course they're going up against the St. James Junior Canucks, who, well, they're back in the Final Four, only missed it for a year as they went out last year in the first round against the Transcona Railer Express. Perhaps that could be a finals matchup this year. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But St. James, they realized that the playoffs a bit different compared to the regular season through their first 3 games of the postseason, as they ended up going down 2-1 to the Charleswood Hawks, but something ended up flipping in game number 4 of this series. 2 straight dominant victories to set up, well, a chance for St. James to go back into the Final Four to make their return.
Calm down by Ringer. He'll play it
As we get up
across.
some highlights.
5 gone here in the second. Sadowski walks in, fires, kicked out, rebound, and that's in. It's the home team striking first. McPherson picks up the rebound from Sadowski and buries it. 1-0 for the Charleswood Hawks. As the Hawks fork it up the far side boards. Picked up here by the blue. And White as they'll drop that one off. Opportunity in front for Thornton. Can't score. Opportunity on the doorstep. He does. And Thornton ties that one up. Nice setup there from Ross and Ward. And no, they're going to say Ward had the... So the Canucks can't clear though either as McPherson holds the line. Now Sutherland up to Robertson. Robertson walks in. He's got Collin on the far side. Collin taps her home. What a beautiful goal there. And Collin makes it 4-1. As the Canucks try and put this one away.
And an offensive explosion in that matchup for the St. James Junior Canucks, as they would end up scoring, well, 5 unanswered until Charleswood could find a second goal in that game. But yeah, St. James ending Charleswood's streak of Final Four appearances, as they've been there in the past few seasons. I know back in 22-23, they ended up making it into the Final Four and lost to the St. Vital Junior Victoria's. Losses in their past 3 Final Four series and falling short this year against the St. James Junior Canucks. And, well, it was a tough first-round matchup for this Charleswood Hawks team. But I think some things were kind of unexpected, honestly. As good as St. James' power or penalty kill was, their special teams. Charleswood had a second-ranked power play in the league this year. They saw that fall to 4.5, and yeah, a team that was pretty undisciplined through the first round of the postseason too took over 100 penalty minutes after, just to take a look at this to confirm this. 109 penalty minutes from this Charleswood Hawks team, a team that was amongst the lowest in terms of taking penalty minutes out of any team this season. Charleswood in this series, though, they did get the goaltending for most of it, but Mark Salmon and this team defensively just ran out of gas, overwhelmed in the end as St. James, just their offensive firepower, too much for Charleswood to handle in this series. They actually saw an uptick in terms of their shots for per game average in the first round series compared to the regular season when St. James averaged about 41 shots per game. And found a way to, you know, keep their shots against down per game compared to what they faced in the regular season, which was 35. Overall, though, this was a series that had a lot of back and forth chances, turned into a bit of a track meet, but felt like St. James, if that was to happen, would benefit them as that series went along, which it did. We saw them connecting off of rush chances. Um, Zone entries off of the rush in those highlights that we just showed you from that game six. And yeah, that came through big time for St. James. Their power play wasn't as great as it usually is, but that's also a credit to Charleswood stepping up their game on the penalty kill, just for Charleswood not being able to find that power play success they did in the regular season, finding themselves in the box a lot more times than they're used to, and just the fact that felt like they got overwhelmed by a St. James team that got hot, figured them out. It ended up being the end of the road for the Charleswood Hawks with all of those things stacked against them this year, as a valiant effort against one of the top teams in the mmjhl heading into the postseason this year. As we'll show you some stats before we take you to another commercial break. As mentioned, Carson King, Peyton Bateman, and Gavin Halad all top three in points. Carson King, 12 goals in 7 games played. He had a stretch in game number 4 and 5 where he had not only back-to-back hat tricks, but had a 4-goal game in game number 5 to have those 7 goals in those past 2 elimination games. He was fantastic. Shame his career ended the way it did, but it was a big reason why, being the River East Royal Knights, as mentioned, their depth coming through, playing with a bunch of heart in that series. Graham Maslow leading the way for them. Nolan Vandenbush was the top point getter for Transcona after the first round, but it was Nathan Turner with a huge game yesterday to go a point up on the captain. Trey Sullen also playing himself into this top 10. He had himself a huge game yesterday in that game 1 victory. Ward and Robertson have been having themselves nice playoffs as well for St. James, and that's continued into the next round. As for goaltenders, no goaltender's been as good as Sage Delarone in this postseason. Owen LaRocque, top goaltender of the year in the mmjhl. He was recognized for that. We'll get into the awards near the end of this episode that were given out. But yeah, sub 900 save percentage from last year's playoff MVP, even though he did have a shutout in his first game of the postseason. Mark Salmon, as mentioned, did everything he could for Charleswood. A 921 save percentage, which is pretty darn impressive. Of course, Spencer Hunnam falling sub 900 save percentage. Connor Murphy, really efficient in round number 1, 2. And then lastly, Kyle Bielman, save percentage below Spencer Hunnam, but what a way that the first-year goaltender for River East battled in that Game 7 victory, made the big saves in the big moments, and that's exactly what you need, right? Lastly, Owen Savoy. Not on him that the Raiders got swept. 901 save percentage, even though he went 0-4. We're going to get into the awards, but first, the Final Four. Talking about how those game ones went, and yeah, what's going to be the key for each team moving forward in this year's semifinals as the chase for the Jack McKenzie Trophy continues. You're watching the mmjhl podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you are on our YouTube channel or directly through our website at gshow.ca.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
And welcome back into the mmjhl podcast. We've shown you highlights from both rounds so far in this edition of the show. Just got done showing you the stats leaders from around the league too, in both players and goaltenders. And yeah, as the Final Four has already begun, wanted to get a show out before, but this weekend was nuts. Just to give you some context, our main broadcast crew, which is, well, when I mean main broadcast crew, when I do my side of the games, of course, Bentley has his crew for the games that they broadcast on our network. But yeah, I'm going to be busy with broadcasting the West Regionals, Manitoba versus Saskatchewan female U18 AAA Hockey League winners going at it. It got switched to Varsity View, which we can't necessarily stream out of there with our normal Wi-Fi setup, which means, yeah, it's been a weekend of trying to figure that out, which the process still isn't finished. I got to go out to Varsity View and actually test from inside the arena today with a new piece of equipment I picked up. But yeah, wanted to get this episode out, unable to over the weekend, but glad I'm able to do it today. During the morning of, well, this game days for both sides of the MMJHL's Final Four series. As we take a look at the games that we got on our broadcast schedule, we will be broadcasting St. Boniface and St. James tonight for Game 2, as St. Boniface looks to bounce back, the defending champs, trailing a series for the first time since 2023-2024, when they got swept in the Final Four against the Pembina Valley Twisters. But yeah, the Final Four, we're down to 4 teams. This is how the bracket looks. Rayler Express, they're up 1-0 over the Royal Knights. And as for the St. James Junior Canucks, up 1-0, as I just mentioned, against the St. Boniface Reals. But we'll talk about Transcona and River East first off, and just taking a look. So the arrows mean those are the updated numbers from these teams' Final Four series to after Game 1. I just realized I didn't update the records as well. Transcona should be at 5-0, and River East should be at 4-4. But yeah, in Game 1, River East definitely seen a dip in all of their numbers. I feel like that's to be expected against a team like the Transcona Rayler Express, a team that showed yesterday that there was no rust after the rest that they've had. They hadn't played in, well, pretty much over a week up until that point, 9 days ago. But yeah, feeling like in this series for River East, you know, obviously you did a lot of good things in round number one, right? You were able to, I think, play a type of a system that frustrated that Stonewall Jets team in terms of taking away their transition pretty good. We'll say that as that series went along, puck management from both sides wasn't exactly the greatest. And yesterday, look, the Royal Knights period number one, back and forth. They had some good chances. They were able to create off the rush. But as that game went along, in game number one, felt like the Transcona Railer Express just got into their game and started to shut a lot down from the River East Royal Knights, at least disrupting what they wanted to do. And felt like River East, as that game went along, they were getting not as much action as we had seen in front of the goal compared to in their series against the Stonewall Jets. Felt that Transcona was much cleaner in their own end, and that's something that I think that River East is just going to need to adjust to as that series goes along. I did feel like there were moments in that game where River East was able to find a man in the high slot and winning on the forecheck, but the execution just wasn't there. They need to not only find a way to rattle Sage Delarone's confidence, but I think being able to get traffic net front is going to be so important in this series. But that's easier said than done. Transcona plays with a lot of pace. They got many weapons that can beat you. That second line for them yesterday in terms of Selin, Turner, and Whiteman were playing at a high level. And the scary thing about that is, look, that's not the only line that's going to beat you on this team, right? They're four lines deep, a team with a lot of experience, and a team that is a level up compared to the Stonewall Jets. I felt that throughout the regular season and felt that way through the first round of the postseason, even though I picked Stonewall to win. And hey, maybe River East comes out and shocks me as well as the rest of the mmjhl world again, but it's a different beast in the Transcona Railer Express that they're going up against. You need to find a way to raise your level. And not only that, but Kyle Bielman needs to find a way to outperform Sage Delarone in this series. And then special teams wise, right? You had so much success on the power play, but now you're going up against what has been the best penalty kill in the mmjhl postseason up until this point. So I feel like there's a lot working against the River East Royal Knights, but still, this is a great opportunity for them to gain some experience. If you're able to take a game against this Transcona Railer Express team, I think that's a huge moral victory. But if Transcona can continue to play the way they did yesterday, how they were able to expand their game as game one went along and get better and better as they settled into it, I think they could potentially make quick work of River East. But I hope to be wrong, because it's always nice to see a series go the distance, right, and go all the way. Would be unbelievable to see another game seven in this postseason, especially in a series like this when, look, River East, they're a huge underdog. And I think they got to take that into consideration, too. I think River East, in a lot of ways, is playing with house money. And yeah, I think anything that happens for them here on out, any positivity will be icing on the cake for this team. They should be very proud of how they've been able to get to this point, and look, hoping to finish things the right way and get back into this series. And also shout out to Anthony Jacob as well as Manny Manuke Jr. stepping up and filling the shoes, the role of Manny Manuke, as he's out for the next 2 games suspended after, yeah, he wasn't so nice to the referee. Saw that altercation in game number 7 of the mmjhl's Elite 8 series between the River East Royal Knights and Stonewall Jets. Here we go. It looks like I did update the the statements here at the bottom of the screen, but I didn't update the scores. Updated everything else for this series. The St. James Junior Canucks going up against the St. Boniface Riels. They put quite a dent in St. Boniface's goals against category. St. Boniface also getting into the penalty box quite a bit in yesterday's matchup. Not really that much of a change in their special teams, a bit of an uptick in the PK percentage, and a bit of a um, decrease in the power play, even though they did get a power play goal yesterday against St. James. St. James, their power play dipping down another 2% basically. 10 penalty minutes yesterday in that matchup, but seeing an uptick in their goals for, of course, and yeah, in terms of shots for, shots against, that didn't really change either. But this is a hot St. James Junior Canucks team coming in who has been finishing games strong as of late. Multiple goals in many periods in their wins in the third against the Charleswood Hawks, yesterday against St. Boniface. Starting off that game really strong with a 2-0 lead, and then taking a look at how they were able to finish that off, a 3-goal third period to really put things away against this St. Boniface Real side. So when you look at that and the fact that St. James, they're proving that it's not only Jaden Ward that can come in and be a big-time player, players like Robertson, but also now Ethan Sari, who had no goals heading into that game, or rather, he had 1 goal heading into that game. Ends up having 4 in total now, 3 of them coming yesterday. Aiden Werfel, also good too, right? And then, as mentioned, Cole Robertson, he had himself 2 goals yesterday. But they got many weapons that can beat you, similar to the Transcone Railer Express, who I've talked so much about with their offense too, right? And when you have a lot of pieces that can beat you, looking back at last year, like I talked about how Fort Garry, they had a lot of depth, right? And they did on paper, but in the end, if they were able to have their top line shut down, they looked like they were in trouble against St. Boniface. That's not exactly the case with St. James this year, as it's not only one line that can beat you, but 3 lines as well. They get some good offensive contributions from the back end too. And then Connor Murphy is also proven that he can get the job done in the postseason. So when you got a team that you're going up against, if you're the St. Boniface Riels, who that they have that high level offense, but they're also able to get big time saves too. I mean, it definitely does make you feel a bit more uncomfortable, I feel like, compared to last year, especially when St. James is able to come out and put the brakes on you in game number 1. This is their biggest test, and I said 6 series. It should be 5 series. They had the shots yesterday. Like, it was very even back and forth between the two sides, but not as clean in their defensive zone, right? Not only do they need to be, I think, cleaner in their defensive zone, win more battles against St. James, but you need Larocque to be at his best. I don't think we've necessarily seen the best from him as of yet. So yeah, that needs to change, especially against the St. James team that has a lot of momentum now. St. Boniface, their key to winning in this series is going to be to win in your own end, and you need to get the better goaltending from Owen Larocque. You have the team to generate chances off the rush and come through at a high level. You're hoping that, game 1, you just chalk that up to a one-off and you bounce back big time. But I do think that this St. Boniface team is under a lot more pressure than they have been in other series in their past 5 during this championship run, or championship defense at the very least. And I think they're going to need to find a way to find another year in their game, find a way to up their level of defensive play, and you gotta hope you can get a cycle going, but you gotta hope that you can generate chances off the rush too, because this is what this team is so good at, is generating chances off the rush. But if St. James is able to continue to get the goaltending, they find a bit of an uptick in the special teams. This is a team that plays physical, that plays fast, and could have St. Boniface exactly where they want them. Is tonight a huge game? Can St. Boniface bounce back, or will it be the St. James Junior Canucks who are able to put them into an early 2-0 stranglehold? Can't wait to find out. You can find out, even away from the arena, who wins that game and follow it live if you tune into our coverage tonight. Bentley Brant will be on the call at 7:30 p.m. for St. Boniface and St. James, as your official home for the MMJHL's postseason is on gshowproductions.uscreen.io. You can also check out the matchup directly through the MMJHL's website, which, by the way, you can check out the MMJHL's website at mmjhl.ca, directly watch the MMJHL game days through there, and also the MMJHL is going to be getting a new website coming up next year, a new look to it, so stay tuned for that. We're going to hit you with one more promo screen. I'm going to briefly show you the award winners, go over them in brief, and then I'll let you go here on this edition of the MMJHL podcast. Welcome back to the MMJHL podcast, everybody. Just saw a message in the chat. I don't have the chat pulled up on my laptop because we want to try to minimize lag, and for some reason having our browser open gives us quite a bit of lag when we do these podcasts. But thank you to Ludwig Media for his comment. I'm glad that you've enjoyed our coverage on the MMJHL this year, and that goes for everybody, for those tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting us this season into the Final Four, which is actually crazy how feels like we're just at the start of the Elite Eight. Time truly does fly, but yeah, this series should be really good. I'm hoping that goes at least 6 games, maybe even 7 could be a lot of fun. Same with both series, as they both pick up tonight, and then they're going to stagger them. So on Thursday night, it'll only be Riels and Canucks. Friday night, it'll be Transcona and River East. Stay tuned in the next few days as we'll confirm if we'll be doing that matchup or not. And then on Saturday night, St. Boniface and St. James go at it in at McDonald Arena, aka the Civic Center, and then on Sunday, Transcona and River East will play their game 4. Check out the MMJHL's website, mmjhl.ca, for updates on how all those games go. And yeah, you can also check out this year's award winners. Not exactly sure where. I found this in a news article that they had uploaded of the award winners when it happened back on March 20th, but yeah, these are the award winners. I know I made my predictions, and I got some of them somewhat right. I predicted Jaden Ward to win MVP, which him and Peyton Bateman get co-MVPs, so I guess combining my preseason predictions as well as my predictions I made before the postseason, I was technically 100% there, as Bateman was our pick to win that award going into the year. Jaden Ward, of course, winning the regular season scoring championship. Caden Bruchansky, we also got this one right. He was named Most Outstanding Defenseman, which wasn't really a surprise. Bit surprised Owen LaRock gets Goaltender of the Year, not because I don't think he's skilled and deserving of it. I even said if he played more games this year, I think he could not only be in the running if he had the same type of efficiency as he did with the best save percentage in the league, but also felt like, he could have played his way into the MVP conversation just because of how valuable he was to St. Boniface and their success, their games played this year. With him out of the lineup, it was a bit of a struggle at points for St. Boniface in that stretch in January. But I think it should have been Sage Delarone. I think Sage got robbed of this award. You look at how they picked it last year, and I don't know exactly what the thinking was, but gave it to Keegan Gordon, who had played the most games, had the most wins, and among some of the best stats in the league. And that's exactly the type of year that Sage had. And maybe they were looking at he played behind, backstopped the best team in the league, which was true. But there were a lot of times this season where Sage would bail out his group at a high level, and yeah, I just feel like I would have given him the award. Just based off of that reasoning. Thought that Sage was the best goaltender in the league this year. But still, Owen Larocque, just proves how good he is to play way less games and to still win this award. Says a lot about his talent. And then the rest of the awards here go to River East Royal Knights players. They get a hat trick, as Lane Richardson named hardest working player in the league. I think that's very valid. Just looking at how he plays, he gives it 110% every shift. Carson Wallishin winning Rookie of the Year. I know that I said Jaden Ward. I only said that honestly because Jaden was our MVP pick, and it's his first year in the league, and felt like, yeah, might as well give him a double dip. But Carson Wallishin, I think he's younger than Ward, and yeah, he had over 20 tucks this year. Unbelievable season from Carson Wallishin, not only being a top rookie in the league, but one of the most impactful players on a team with some good experience in the River East Royal Knights. And then Coach of the Year, my pick was Pat Power, but honestly, Manny Manuk getting this makes total sense. Just given that River East makes it back into the postseason. They did finish 6th place, but you could make an argument that maybe they could have been even higher than 6th place. And yeah, just really impressive for a franchise that hasn't made the postseason in the past 2 years. They've had some talented players, but haven't been able to put it together. This year's coaching staff was able to come in and get the best a lot of times out of this group. And for Manny Manuk, first year head coach in this league, yeah, pretty awesome to see him get this award. Had a chance to talk to Manny, get to know him a bit this year, and yeah, it makes me smile getting to see him win that award, and glad I was wrong about that prediction in particular. At the end of the day, seeing who won it in Manny Manuk. So those are the award winners. You can check them out on the mmjhl's website as mentioned. And yeah, congratulations to all players that brought home hardware this year. And interesting, they go with co-MVPs, but that's just a testament to how good of a season Peyton Bateman had, having the most points per game in the league in terms of that average. But Final Four coverage continues tonight. Bentley Brant will be on the call. I'll be on the call for Game 3 at Southdale Community Center. And then, yeah, stay tuned for if we'll be doing Railer Express and Royal Knights Game 3 on Friday in the next few days. But that's going to do it for this edition of the MMJHL podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. Consider that if you don't want to miss any future episodes. Consider liking this episode as well. All things help not only us out, but they help get this content, push it into the algorithm here on YouTube potentially. But if you don't decide to do any of that, we still really appreciate your support anyways for tuning in to another edition of the MMJHL podcast. Until next time, the details will be posted on our website as well as on our social media, Instagram. And if we do forget to do that, well, just wait for the next MMJHL podcast notification, as that'll be coming out next time when episode 19, season 3 hits. Yeah, that's going to do it, everybody. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the Final Four content coming your way. We know we can't wait to continue to deliver you some very exciting content from a very exciting time here in the MMJHL season as the hunt for the Jack McKenzie Trophy continues tonight. Take care, everybody.